Well, this is kind of an exciting time for me. I was checking out my YouTube statistics. I just started doing all these videos like, what, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I'm already up to a total of about 93 views last I checked a couple of minutes ago. Um, so that's cool. This video will totally put me over 100 views. It's pretty interesting to think that people are just willing to just sit back and allow themselves to be entertained for a few minutes looking at comics. That's cool. I mean, that's what I use YouTube for, so whatever. Um, I'm going to do this video for Batavenger's 500 sub contest. As you can clearly see, um, it's really cool that he's got that many subscribers. Um, he does some really great videos. I really enjoy his stuff. He's super knowledgeable, and he's got a lot of really great books. And he seems to always know what to pick up every week too. That's pretty interesting. Um, well, let's see. To take part in this contest, you have to be 18, subscribe to his channel, and I guess live in the United States. All of which I qualify for, so I'm not worried about that. So the first thing he asked to be a part of the contest was, which character do you identify with the most? And for me, I think it's this guy right here, the Hulk. And it's not because he's incredibly strong, incredibly, because I'll let you in on a little secret. I'm not strong, despite what the girls at work tell me when they're getting me to move something heavy for them. But it's because, well, there aren't like a whole lot of superheroes who are private individuals, you know, like introverts or whatever. And I don't know if the Hulk qualifies for that exactly, but he does just want to be left alone. And I feel him on that, you know? I'm like, I don't know. I don't like people. People. I don't understand people. Maybe that's just me. But and I guess it's not just the Hulk. Bruce Banner's kind of the same way too. I mean, Reed Richards is always like the more like Professor on Gilligan's Island type of scientist. He's like all suave and debonair and everything. And Banner was always kind of bumbling and nerdy, I guess. You could say that Peter Parker was the same way, but whenever Peter Parker became Spider-Man, he basically transformed into a completely different person. So did Banner, obviously, when he turns into the Hulk. But the Hulk, I mean, Spider-Man, he's charismatic and always joking around and everything, and the Hulk is still just like, leave me alone. I want nothing to do with anybody. So, I get that. I like the Hulk. He's cool. The next thing was to talk about a storyline that, like a favorite storyline. And for me, I'm going to go with the Brief Lives arc from Sandman. This story, I really love this story. Like back in the day, this was like the storyline that really got me into the Sandman. It's the story where the family of the Endless, these like cosmic entities who represent different aspects of I don't know, reality. They're kind of estranged and on the outs, and there was one of them, Destruction, who always kind of kept them together and I don't know, just made them get along a little bit better because he was you know, a fun guy to be around. But he's been missing for a while, and none of them knows where he is. And the youngest member of the Endless, Delirium, decides that she wants things to be nice again the way they used to be, which is interesting because Delirium actually, when she began her existence, she used to be Delight, and I guess over time she kind of became, I don't know, just degenerated into Delirium instead. I guess the line between Delight and Delirium is gets kind of fuzzy sometimes, which, you know, ask the Joker, I'm sure he'd agree. So in this storyline, she goes around to all her siblings asking them for help, looking for their brother, and all of them refuse, except for well, she goes to Dream, who's of course the main character, and she's totally expecting him to refuse, but he just actually got out of a bad relationship with uh, a human woman, and so he's like, his mindset at the moment is kind of a, I guess, like a stalker ex-boyfriend. So he's like, oh well, she wants to go look for destruction on Earth, and this woman that I was dating was on Earth, so maybe I'll go hang out there, and maybe I'll just run across her. So he decides to go with her, and there you go. And it's cool because it's got like a whole bunch of flashbacks to like earlier stories. Well, not stories, but just anecdotes where you see the family kind of interacting with destruction. You see how they fell apart. You see how he decided to leave eventually. But Dream and Delirium kind of go on this road trip together. It's really cool. And they're looking up old acquaintances of destruction. Um, I remember this issue. This is the one where they go to, I think her name was, well, she goes by a bunch of different names. She was a Babylonian goddess, Inanna or Astarte, something like that. I don't remember. But she was basically like a love goddess or a fertility goddess and everything. And now she's been reduced to working in a strip club, um, which she eventually destroys by the end of the issue. This one is really cool. They go, well, actually, at some point, Dream kind of, he realizes like they're looking for destruction, and their journey is kind of causing a whole bunch of destruction. So he realizes something is wrong, and he tells Delirium that he's not going to go with her anymore, and they kind of stop. But then he decides to keep looking for destruction on his own. He goes to this Egyptian cat goddess, Bast. It's really cool, and she kind of points him in the right direction, like letting him know that he needs to find an oracle. So what he eventually does is he goes to his son, Orpheus, whom he had with the muse Calliope. And if you know the story of Orpheus, you know that he fell in love with Eurydice, and she died, and he goes into the underworld to bring her back. But and Hades agrees to let her leave if he will walk out of the underworld without ever looking back. And as he's almost out, and he's not hearing like anything behind him, so he's suspicious that Hades is just, you know, sending him off without, just as like a trick just to get him out. And so when he's almost out, he finally loses his confidence, and he looks back, and he sees Eurydice behind him, and but as soon as he turns back, she of course falls back down into the underworld, and so he's lost everything. And then afterwards, he gets torn apart by a bunch of, I don't know what. I don't know. Actually, I don't know what they were, but he gets torn apart. But he can't die because he got Death, who is Dream's older sister, to allow him to go into the underworld. So basically, for the past more than 2,000 years, he's just been a severed head that's still alive. So in this story, Dream goes to see him. They haven't actually spoken for a long time, but in fact, Dream promised that he would never see him again. But Orpheus is like an oracle at this point, so he goes to see him, and it turns out that destruction is like, or they have Orpheus on a temple in the Aegean Sea, just some little island, and it turns out that destruction lives on the next island over. So it's like super convenient, but you know, whatever, it's cool. But in order to get Orpheus to tell him where destruction is, he has to like offer him something in return, and Orpheus just wants to die. So he makes Dream promise that, you know, once he goes and sees destruction and gets what he wants, he will come back and he will allow Orpheus to die. And so he does, and that actually kind of sets up the final main story arc of the Sandman, where the Furies kind of come after Dream for killing his own son, and end up killing him too. But yeah, there's a bit, I kind of want to show this. Ooh, how to rebag these issues. These have been sitting in here for a while. There's a bit in this last part where you can see Dream is kind of holding up Orpheus's head, and then he just, I don't know how he does it exactly, you know, it's magic, but he lets it die. And so all the endless are kind of in this story. But you get this bit where he like remembers what he told Orpheus right after Eurydice died. He's like, well, look, she's dead, but you were alive, so live. And he's thinking about that after he gets home after killing Orpheus, and he just kind of goes and sits on this couch. And I admit, you know, I got a little choked up at this scene, but in my defense, I was 17 at the time, and you know, that's an emotional age. Anyway, that is definitely a favorite story arc of mine. And the artwork is beautiful too. I mean, Jill Thompson, she can do, like, if you've ever seen her work on Beasts of Burden, for example, she does it there too. She can do this really kind of whimsical style that fits really well with Neil Gaiman's writing. So that's that. The final thing was to show off 3 spec books, 3 recent spec books. So I picked these 3. I could have picked a whole bunch, but I picked this one, this Iron Man Hong Kong Heroes. And you got to keep in mind, all of these books, they could be nothing. You know, they could be 30, 40 years from now, they'll still be worth cover price. I picked this one because it's the first appearance of this, basically this Chinese Iron Man. And they might never do anything with this character. I think she's only appeared in this one book, and everything I've heard about this book is the story in it is not very good. But you never know. Maybe some writer will pick her up and do something with her. It would seem to me, personally, like Tony Stark setting up another Iron Man in China would be kind of a slap in the Mandarin's face. But who knows? Maybe nobody will ever do anything with it. It would be nice if they did. There's 3 different covers for this one, and she was on 2 of them, but I think this is the clearest image of her. So that's the one that I picked up. The second spec book is Gwenpool number 25. The reason I picked this is not because there's anything particularly special about this book. There's no first appearances or anything, but this is the last issue of her series, and it got canceled for low sales. And if you look kind of over the history of the industry, you look at books like Star Wars number 107 or G.I. Joe 55? Transformers number 80, Masters of the Universe 12 and 13, stuff like that. Like, the last issues always seem to eventually end up being worth a lot of money because the print run was really low. I guess it depends on whether or not there's ever like a growing fan base for this character, more demand for her. Because if there's not, then nothing is ever going to come of this. But this is the final issue of her series. It probably had a pretty low print run. I should have checked on Comic-Con to see what the print run was, but or at least what it sold. But I don't know. It couldn't have been that high. It was probably less than 10,000. And the final, I'm actually going to move this entire thing out of the way, because the final book that I wanted to show off was this original graphic novel, Amazing Spider-Man Family Business. This book actually has the first appearance of Peter Parker's sister, Teresa Parker. And, you know, it's one of those things where it kind of depends on what future writers do with it. Right now, Matt Fraction has been using her in the Spectacular Spider-Man. And according to him, at least, so far, she's still officially Peter Parker's sister. But it's always possible that some future writer will come along and retcon that and say, no, she was never his sister. Or that the character will just disappear and people won't use her anymore. And even though it's a graphic novel and not a single issue, these things can sometimes go up in price too. I mean, if you look at stuff like The Killing Joke or Marvel graphic novel number 4 with the New Mutants, those things get pretty pricey. So it's possible that this, I think this came out in 2014, but it's possible that it could go up in value. I could show this one. Sorry, let me grab this one image. Yeah. This is like the first shot you see of her where she, I don't know if that's in focus or not, but she's basically telling Peter that she's her sister. And it's you know, it's an okay story. It's kind of a spy story, but got the Kingpin and what's his name? Mesmero, I think. One of those mind control people. It stretches suspension of disbelief a little bit. I think that he gave Teresa Parker some low-level psychic abilities, but you know, whatever. It's okay. So those are the spec books, the favorite storyline, and the character that I identify with the most. I want to really congratulate Batavenger on all his subs. Man, keep it up. You're doing a great job. I really enjoy watching your videos. That's all I got for now.